Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are literally breaking down the entire ecosystem of modern football. We're talking everything from the massive global scale of the cup right down to the literal ground they play on. We'll look at the hardcore science of how to make a player and exactly how they survive both the physical and mental fall on the pitch. So, I really want you to think about this for a second. What does it actually take to conquer the pitch at the 2026 World Cup? Because, let's be real, it is not just about raw talent anymore. As we're going to see, winning on the world's absolute biggest stage requires mastering this incredibly complex web. We're talking logistics, agricultural science, hyper-specialized equipment, tactical geometry, and, of course, peak psychological resilience. It's a lot. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the 2026 World Cup itself. Second, the rules of the ground. Third, making the ultimate player. Fourth, tactics and formations. And finally, fouls, falls, and focus. All right, let's dive right in. Section 1, the 2026 World Cup. 48. That is the number of teams from 6 confederations competing in this totally expanded World Cup format. Up from the old 32-team setup, this expansion means we are looking at a staggering 104 matches. I mean, it's a logistical undertaking unlike anything the sport has ever seen. And for the very first time, the tournament is being co-hosted by 3 entirely different nations. You've got Canada, Mexico, and the US, spanning across 16 different host cities. The action officially kicks off in Mexico City and then wraps up with the big final at MetLife Stadium in New York/New Jersey. Plus, after that 2022 winter tournament in Qatar, we are finally returning to the classic summer schedule, running from June 11th all the way to July 19th. Now, beyond the logistics, this tournament sits right in the middle of a pretty unique socio-political context. To be super clear, we aren't endorsing any viewpoints here, we're just looking at what the source material highlights. And those sources point out things like the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize being awarded to Donald Trump, adjustments to U.S. travel bans that actually affect fans and officials from certain African nations, and organized stadium worker negotiations reaching tentative agreements in LA just before the matches. It's a massive global event, and with that comes some very complex global realities. Okay, moving on to Section 2, Rules of the Ground. So the literal ground beneath the player's feet. It's basically a marvel of agricultural science. We're talking university-designed turf grass, engineered specifically for 3 completely distinct climates. And to conquer this bespoke ground, physical connection is absolutely everything. Players rely on highly specialized equipment, like wide foot cleats made of conforming kangaroo leather. Why? Because it prevents brutal blistering and allows them to safely transfer all that explosive power directly into the turf. Once they're actually out on that ground, they are completely bound by these 17 laws of soccer, maintained by IFAB. And these rules literally dictate the whole shebang. Law 1 requires a green, rectangular field. Law 2 mandates a perfectly spherical ball, exactly 27 to 28 inches in circumference, no exceptions. We've got 11 players per team, strict equipment rules like mandatory shin guards fully covered by socks, and of course, the absolute, unquestionable authority of the referee. Seriously, whatever the ref says, goes. Now we have to talk about Law 11, offside. It is notoriously misunderstood, but honestly, it's vital to grasp before we get into the tactical weeds. Simply put, an attacking player cannot be level with or behind the second-to-last defender, which, by the way, is usually the goalkeeper, when the ball is played to them, assuming they're involved in the active play. Basically, it just stops offensive players from cherry-picking and camping out right in front of the opponent's goal. Which brings us to Section 3, making the ultimate player. So how exactly do you make a player fully capable of surviving a tournament like this cup? Well, it starts with the data. Teams use advanced feature selection algorithms across 3 main pillars. You have technical skills like passing and dribbling, physical capabilities like tackling, and mental competencies like positioning. Analysts then evaluate all this data based on its relevance, the completeness of the dataset, and non-redundancy. The whole goal is to predict match outcomes and basically engineer the perfect roster. Of course, to fuel those skills, nutrition is intensely regimented. It's a literal science. Carbs from things like whole grains or bananas provide glycogen for those crazy intermittent sprints. Proteins, like lean meats, are strictly for muscle repair. You've got anti-inflammatory fats, think olive oil, to maintain performance and keep them full. And hydration? Totally non-negotiable. We're talking 16 to 20 ounces of water an hour, plus electrolytes, just to prevent severe cramps and dizziness under that blazing summer sun. But fueling the body is really just step 1. Next, you have to build the engine. Targeted drills are everything here. Players do sprints and resistance runs with parachutes to build massive leg power and acceleration. They do bounding for stride length, T-drills, zigzag runs, and ladder drills. All of it mimics those sharp lateral direction changes. This is literally what allows a striker to fluidly evade a tackle or defender to instantly lock on to a fast-moving attacker.
But here's the thing, a perfectly tuned body is kind of useless without the mind. Get this, research actually shows that multi-sensory visualization of success can boost performance by up to 45%. That's huge. So players rely on incredibly strict routines, from sleep right down to stadium arrival. They use 4-7-8 controlled breathing to manage anxiety and process-focused positive self-talk to just stay totally locked in. All right, moving to Section 4, Tactics and Formations.
So one of the most famous and effective ways to organize a team out on the pitch is the 4-3-3 formation. This is a hugely popular, very attacking tactical system. It features 4 defenders at the back, a nicely balanced trio right in the midfield, and 3 forwards up front. It's actually the exact system famously used by legendary, possession-dominant teams like Pep Guardiola's Barcelona or Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool.
Now, the 4-3-3 is absolutely devastating, but it kind of requires perfection. Its strengths are incredible attacking width, a really powerful high-pressing structure, and natural numerical overloads on the flanks. But, the weaknesses are very real. Your midfield 3 can easily get outnumbered if the other team is playing 4 midfielders. It also strictly requires elite wingers. If those wingers don't use all that endurance built by those resistance sprints we just talked about to track back on defense, the team gets left incredibly vulnerable to quick counterattacks right down the middle.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Fouls, Falls, and Focus. When a player takes a hard physical fall out there due to a foul, the referee steps in to enforce Law 12. If a player is tripped, kicked, or pushed, it's a direct free kick. That means they can literally shoot the ball straight into the goal. However, for non-physical infractions like playing in a dangerous manner or impeding progress without actually making contact, an indirect free kick is awarded. In that scenario, the ball has to touch another player before a goal can actually be scored. To manage the discipline and overall safety of the players, the referee uses a strict card system. A yellow card is basically your formal warning for things like dissent, delaying the restart, or persistent minor fouls. But a red card, that is severe. That means immediate ejection from the game for violent conduct, serious foul play, or maybe deliberately using a handball to stop an obvious goal. And remember, if you get 2 yellow cards in a single match, well, that automatically turns into a red. But honestly, the most challenging aspect of the game isn't always recovering from a physical slide tackle. It's recovering from a mental fall. When a player makes a critical mistake on the world stage, their ability to bounce back is literally what separates the amateurs from the pros. By utilizing those sports psychology techniques we discussed earlier, things like mindfulness and the 4-7-8 breathing exercise, players can actively reduce their anxiety levels by a massive 30%. That resilience is what allows them to refocus and get right back into the flow of the match. And that wraps up our explainer. We've seen how the sheer grand scale of the cup rests entirely on the micro details of the ground itself. We've explored the complex science used to make a player and the extreme resilience required to recover from every single fall. So, the next time you step onto the grass, I want you to ask yourself, how will you apply the science of the pitch to master your own game? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring all those amazing details hidden right in front of us.